is that what's
Mm-hmm.
for the most part? Okay. Okay. And how do you guys feel about your databases?
I love it. Well,
No, speak.
oh, I love it. I love the smart plan. They kind of made it dummy proof for us, as Tony calls it, where the smart plans are there, easy for us, easily accessible. So we have it for Facebook leads. We have it for just about everything.
Yeah.
And so it's really awesome. I mean, all of my business, which isn't a lot, 'cause I'm a new agent, but I'm grateful for it, has come from my SOI and just nurturing relationships.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Does everyone in here have some sort of? Okay, good. That's really good. I also feel like if you are a new agent, I mean, it can seem a little bit overwhelming, especially if you aren't from here. I was really lucky that I'm born and raised in the state, and so it was pretty easy for me to grow my database pretty quickly. But I'll tell you, if you're doing things like, I mean, I know it's kind of strange times, but if you're doing things like open houses, I mean, make sure that you're at least putting them on like a drip campaign to begin with, because eventually they can become part of your SOI. So I use, and I know I should be using Command, I use Top Producer. It's pretty similar to Command in that, I mean, all CRMs have some similarities to them, but because I've used this for so long, it's hard for me to kind of get out of it. And it really helps me stay, like these little blocks right here, if you can see my mouse hovering over them. This tells me each day the people that I need to follow up with and how, which I really like. Because it's all different. I mean, I might be sending them like a market snapshot or telling them the market's changed, or, you know, it varies based on what their history is. But it helps me on a daily basis, aside from lead follow-up, to know, okay, what 20 people out of my database should I follow up with today? And I can't stress the importance of that either. Just as important the postcards that are going out or the emails that are going out. I can't tell you how many times I've had a client say, oh, I'm so glad, I was just thinking of you last week, I'm so glad you called me. So it's, staying in touch is a big deal. So as far as the campaigns that you just referenced, so is it, describe it to me.
So essentially it's kind of just like touches, I want to say it's about 3 times a week.
Okay.
And then it just kind of updates. Let's say the Facebook lead, it just responds to them and just says, hey, is there any areas that you're interested in? What is like the home that you're looking for? Things like that, as well as I like how, like you were saying, it pulls up on the tasks to call Bill, make sure you remember it's his birthday, yada yada, and that you have all those notes. So as far as the campaigns go, I'm trying to transition to more authentic, very like me, and I want to know more about their lives and follow up with them in that perspective. But
Yeah.
there's ones for everything. There's one for SOI. There's one for all the different leads. It's awesome.
Good.
So as long as you take advantage and really care for like which ones they were meant for, it really opens that door.
It's so nice that we have some sort of automated process, because let me just tell you, when I started, I had to create my own postcards. There wasn't a system yet, and there wasn't, you know, a command that you could go to. Keller Williams had marketing, but it was a little clunky. And so I was having to come up with 2 postcards and my newsletter every single month, which can be overwhelming, especially if you're busy. So it's really nice to hear that. I think we all have options these days, which I think is really great. The other thing I think you'll start to notice as you're in the business, as time goes on, is that if you are staying in touch with your database consistently, it will mirror your business in a growth perspective. Meaning, so for example, this year, I think I closed 53 or 54 homes this year, and my database is about 500. So about 10% return, which obviously I'd like that to be higher, but that just shows you the power of your database. And, you know, especially if you're staying in front of them, I mean, it's really funny. I had these clients that I closed my first year of real estate, so this was 17 years ago. And I've been mailing to them for 17 years. And I thought, there are certainly times where I'm like, I haven't heard from these guys. I've reached out to them, like, they're not, like, I'm just gonna delete them. Well, don't, because they called me a month ago and asked me to sell their home. And it's because I'd stayed in touch with them for all these years, and they saw my growth. They saw that, you know, the evolution kind of my business, and they were like super proud of me, which I thought was really cute. But it just shows, like, stay in touch with them, because it's gonna reap returns in the end for sure. So the other thing that I wanted to ask you guys is, within the databases that you have right now, do you have you organized them? Like, meaning your top, like, people who you know for a fact would refer you, and then maybe someone who's more of a contact, you know them, but you're not really sure. They might know a couple of real estate agents. Are they organized like that?
They have us
tagged. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're tagged and separated into SOI. We have like friends. We have like so leads and everything. So they are organized: hot, warm leads, cold leads.
Okay.
So they're kind of organized, but not as well as we should.
Okay. The only reason I ask is because as your database grows, I mean, when I started, I don't know, what's about the average of all of your databases at this point? Like, just throw out like a number, like that you'd say, like
About 300.
okay, 300.
About 100 for us newer agents.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's
650.
great. That's awesome. How many?
650.
Oh, okay.
I just cut it from 11, so I might go back up to 1100.
I'm telling you. I mean, the only time that with Top Producer grabs like Realtor.com leads and things like that that come in, those are the only ones that I eventually end up deleting out of this. But as far as like people that I've done business with or definitely refer me consistently, I would never take them out. So something that I started doing about just over 2 years ago was, so I have a real estate coach. I've been in coaching for, I mean, obviously you guys are all in coaching too. I started coaching about 5 years ago, and I started with a MAPS coach, which is Keller Williams coaching, and actually ended up switching to someone, her name is Caprice Gunn, and she's has her company's Workman. And what she had me do, which I just think is amazing, is really stay in touch with your top 50. So these people are all of my A's. I know 100% that they would refer me, or I've done business with them in the last year. And so I sort of upped my game from doing the postcards, the email newsletter, the calls, the texts, that kind of stuff, to this, which as a new agent, I don't want to overwhelm you. I just want to tell you something that's kind of an idea for the future. And so with my top 50, what I do, have you guys heard of Buffini, Brian Buffini? Okay. So they're huge fans of pop buys, where you go and drop something off on, you know, you're just out and about and you end up doing it. I do it in a pretty systematic way. So these guys get either like I don't know, like last month I did from Papa John, thanks Jess, the heart-shaped pizzas. So I dropped off heart-shaped pizzas. I didn't, I have a guy who does the delivery for me. But I dropped off heart-shaped pizzas, but it might also be like, I've done, like in the summer I did a $5 gift card to like Menchie's frozen yogurt. So it can just be, it's just something that is a little bit more of like a touch, and kind of like a gift saying thank you for being so consistent with referring me, and thank you for being a partner with me in my business. So it's just something to think about for the future, I think. It's been hugely successful for me, and I'm just about 2 years into doing it. So I think it's something also to look for in the future. And I think you guys will see there's an evolution of your database. Like it starts with, I mean, this is how mine started. It started with, I had their names, their address, and their phone number, and their email. And that was it. And that's enough. Because I hear so many people say like, oh, but I just need to put together, like if they're like, you know, how do you do the business that you do? Well, because I stay in touch with my database, and I am systematic about it, and it reaps the rewards in the end. So I've definitely moved from, okay, now I just have like their contact info to now I'm adding like birthdays, anniversaries, like always make sure like when you sell the home, you, in your database, you put when that is so that you can a year from then say, hey, congratulations, it's been a year since you've owned your home. It's those little touches that you need to show that you care. And I do care, not that you're like trying to be fake about it, but you do care, so show them that you care. And I think that you'll see growth from that, and they'll continue to refer you to others. So what kind of questions do you guys have, just initial thoughts? I just want to pause because I don't want to talk at you. What kind of questions do you guys have right now?
You say you send out 2 postcards, that's 24 of your 33.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do the pop buys. Do you do emails, do you do texts?
So the pop buys are separate outside of the 33 touch. That's kind of an addition. So all of these people are in my 500, in my SOI. So they all get the postcards. So I ended up hiring someone to do this all for me. I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago, might even be 7 years ago. And so he puts together these postcards like that look like this, that has like, you know, this shows like the home sales over the last 20 years. We try to find like relevant marketing information that's current to the actual market, or it might be something that's, you know, like this one, like Utah Fun Facts, you know, and it has like different cool things about Utah. So we try to mix it up, but every quarter he does send out this one, which I think is great. It's pretty much what we get from the MLS. You guys have seen this email come over from the MLS. But this also goes out to my clients. So he creates the 2 postcards. He also creates the email newsletter for me. And then we're also once a month doing an email with a blog post that links back to my website. And then yes, I will tell you, I'll be totally honest, I am not a good person at calling my database. And I know that's what you're supposed to do. I'm really good at staying in touch with them. I guess I've just sort of always been that way. I mean, I'm totally fine to text them or email them. I don't know. It's just harder for me to, I don't know, just being totally transparent.
Yeah.
But you should call them and text them and email them. I really look at it is hopefully you know your database pretty well. How would they want to be communicated with, you know, and then go that route. Do you have something?
Yes, Michelle Red, she asked, do you do pot buys for all 50 people every month?
Mm-hmm. It's either a pot buy or I kind of try to alternate them if I can. Like I did the pizzas last month, and for March, for St. Patrick's, it's probably not going to be an actual physical drop off on their doorstep because it can get a little pricey, you know, doing these, especially because I have to, you know, I'm paying someone else to drop them off for me. And actually what he does, so my clients don't know I have someone else drop them off because he takes a picture of the whatever I've dropped off and then texts me the picture and says who the name is. And then I text my clients.
So
Say,
smart.
a little sneaky.
So smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so not, because it can get kind of expensive, so I try to alternate.
And then Tana says, I think text counts, touch is a touch.
Yep, I agree.
love that.
Yeah, 100%.
And then if you're doing 50 deals a year and you got 50 in your top past clients that refer you, how the heck do you get rid of 50 every year? Because you're doing that much every year and you only have 50 in your top 50.
So this rotates. So they will always be in my SOI, but I look at who I close. So when I put together this is 2020. When I put together my 2021, it's some of the same people, but I made sure everyone that most of the people that I closed last year are in here. So it kind of turns into who I've closed plus consistent. And sometimes you have to sort of evaluate it too. Like, I mean, some of my closings last year were people who moved out of state, and really I know that they don't have a lot of connections here. So the likeliness of me getting a referral from them is pretty slim. So I wouldn't put them in my top 50. And I can't be, if they did go out of state anyway, I can't pop by, I'm not driving to Idaho, drop off pizza. So it rotates a little bit. So this isn't always gonna be the same. Yeah.
I love that. I just have to say, so she is obviously tracking how things are going with this, right? And going in line with that, I know with my own business, I always would look at other business owners or other salespeople with the same company for a long time. And I always used to think, these are the individuals that are in my top 50, those that I focus with. But then once I tracked like where I am seeing business coming from, I was able to see, I remember one woman out of South Jordan, single mom, but she was referring me like in grocery stores and stuff like that. And I was like, holy cow, how is she not in my top 50? So I know that Capri side of things. And then, but yeah, it's just so important to track it. And I love how you've talked about top producer, but you just have something you look at and you use. I heard someone say, what is the best CRM? Or I found the best CRM you could ever use, and it's been helping my business so much. And everyone else is saying like, well, what CRM are you using? And he's like, it's the one I use every day, right?
Yeah.
So just make sure you're doing it consistently also.
Yeah, my top producer, I literally have like 5 windows open consistently, and top producer is one of them, because obviously as I'm going about my day, and especially when I'm having these conversations with the blocks of people that I was just showing you guys, did I get on? Oh no, I didn't. I need to be able to go into their contact card, because I think it's really important when I call up Dana Hathaway, I have her card pulled up and I'm taking notes about our conversation, or I make notes from our text. Oh, I just got a new dog and we named him. I'm not gonna remember all the details of all, I'm pretty good with that, but it's better to just be making those notes. So the next time you talk to him, you're like, oh, how's your new dog, Frito or whatever, Yeah. So, because it matters so much. And think about, like, it matters to me when someone, I love that I can go to certain restaurants and they're like, oh, sorry, they already know what I get, I think that's really cool that I'm a valuable enough customer that they remember what I ordered.
Mm-hmm.
So make sure that you're really tracking those details in some capacity, because they do care. Do you have a question?
Tiana said, where did you find your delivery guy? Just a friend's son?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty, that 16-year-old is like so excited to go drive their car. But, and I just pay him like the same amount every single time, because the 50 are never, they're gonna be the same addresses for the next 12 months. So he gets paid, and he does it in like 2 days. So it's really fast. Yeah.
What is, if you could pick your top 3, like your top 3 values that you bring to your database, what would they be?
I would say, value would be, I'm definitely, when I'm talking to them, texting them, emailing them, or staying in touch with them, I'm bringing them relevant information. Like I try to think, okay, if I wasn't a real estate agent, what would I care about? I think one of the things, and I just barely am starting this month, and I should have been doing this for a while, that I love, my lender, and he uses like Hotwire, or one of my lenders, I can't remember what he uses, but it's like Market Snapshot. Do you guys know what I'm saying when I say that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's, for my clients, what's gonna be valuable is that their neighborhood, they're gonna know like how many homes sold, how many are active, how many are under contract, what's the average days on market, and what's the price point. Like that I would care about. I realize that you can sign up for Zillow and Zillow can tell you the same thing, but I think that that's an important piece. I think that when it comes to, like, I'll give you an example. So when we entered COVID last March, and everyone was freaking out. No one knew what was gonna happen. I sat back and thought, what can I do for my database right now that shows them like I really, really do care about you? And so I sent out to my entire database, and I was taking a big risk on this one, but I sent out to my entire database and said, I want to offer you, there's a juice place in Sugar House that was offering something called the Abundance Box, and it was a really nice box of fresh fruits and vegetables, which can you go to the grocery store, but you have to remember back in March, like everyone didn't want to leave their house, right? So I offered that to my clients, and I cannot tell you, and I didn't send out 500 of them. I mean, I think I ended up sending out like 50 of them. But how appreciative, even the ones that didn't take me up on it. So I think that's value, that I care. And then I feel like communication, like I'm really good when it comes to working with me at communicating, and I feel like there's a lot of agents out there that aren't so great. And people care. They want to know that you're a priority. I mean, if you asked any of the clients I'm working with right now, if they felt like they were the only client that is working with me, they'd say yes, because I make everyone feel that important.
Wow.
And she works with a lot. At
Yeah.
a time.
Yeah, so I think those are like my top 3, I would say.
Great.
So, yeah.
And you guys can ask questions too on Zoom, just unmute yourself. Or if you have a comment, just unmute yourself.
Okay, but it's in the chat feed.
Yeah,
too.
and
Okay,
they're
good.
doing it in there too.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're not missing anyone.
Sorry, Ashley, did you have a?
Oh, sorry.
That was
No,
okay.
it's okay. I was like really shrimpy.
No.
Just ready.
But this is about, since a few of us are newer agents and also not being from here, kind of finding those connections, and then in what ways do you bring value, the same value, to those newer potential clients who you may not have met in a way that is like starting as a friendship? You know, if you have like a lead and you want to show them that you care about them, and that, you know, in what ways do you bring value to those people that are really new in your life?
So how do you grow your SOI?
Yeah, and just like feed it in the same way with someone you may not know as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you implement?
So I can give you 2 examples. So the first one will be, let's go back 17 and a half years. And even though I had a start of people in my database, I mean, I bet you mine was like 125-ish, I
Yeah.
think, when I started. I did open houses, and I know they can either be frowned on right now, but they're eventually gonna come back,
Yeah.
of course. But I think meeting people at open houses, because I feel like that one-on-one versus like an internet lead that comes over, not that there's anything wrong with internet leads, but the conversion is just harder, I feel like. And at an open house, they get to know you, like your personality,
Yeah.
and engage with them in what you know. Like, I mean, if I were holding an open house right now, I would be, for someone walking into the open house and they're a first-time home buyer, I'd be educating them on like what the market looks like right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think the showing what you know, like your knowledge, is huge. So, I mean, that's why it's so important if you can. I realize when you're starting out as a new agent, this isn't always the case, but that's why being a full-time agent eventually is really important, because you need to be living and breathing real estate every day. If you think back, and I don't know how many of you guys have written offers for buyers recently, but a year ago, we weren't writing appraisal gaps into our offers. Like, that's just how, do you guys know what I'm talking about when I say
Yeah.
that? Okay. That's just how much the market has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And so showing them that you know what's happening in the market, and if you're still learning, like, take Marcus's slides and study them,
Mm-hmm.
so that you guys know, you know, where things have gone over the last year. And those MLS emails that we get, send those out, like, keep those, so that when you meet that new lead, you become the educator.
Yeah.
And you show them that you have knowledge. But also, I think the most important thing when you first meet someone is assess their needs.
Yeah.
like what's most important to them? What do they need from you? What's most valuable for them?
Mhm.
So just showing that you care, I think brings, I mean, I've been up against other agents so many times on like, not necessarily, not things from my sphere, but let's just say like leads or, I mean, once you've been in the business for a while, like one day you guys will go up against each other on something. And it's really interesting, how differently even the seasoned agents handle their business. I feel like I'm like someone who wants to bring like all my little eggs together, like in a basket,
Yeah.
like, and just nurture them.
Mhm.
And I think that comes through in the way that I communicate with my clients. Whereas some agents that are seasoned agents, like, I think you can feel like you're a number to them,
Yeah.
you know? So I think just showing that you care
Yeah.
is like the big one.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there any questions on there?
Do you guys have any questions? You guys can unmute yourself if you do.
I just wanna make sure I'm not missing anything.
Yes, no,
Okay,
I'm glad
okay,
you
perfect.
asked.
So what are you, as far as what you guys are sending out right now, are you all sending out postcards?
Not necessarily mailers,
Okay.
but as far as emailed newsletter,
Touch.
market snapshots,
Okay.
blogging about UHS, for instance, and who we are and members of it. Yeah, statistics, also homes that, of course, in this market, homes that go on market and the story they tell, like how quickly they go off market, stuff
Okay.
like that.
You know, the other thing that I would suggest to you guys, being newer agents, is y'all live in a neighborhood somewhere, right? And become the mayor of that neighborhood. Not literally, but know what restaurants are opening, what shops are opening, who's struggling in the neighborhood, like shop owners or restaurants. What events are happening? I mean, get on like are you guys familiar with Nextdoor, if I say that?
Yeah.
Okay. You
I
can,
don't know what it is.
especially in this market, and so you don't look spammy, you can go on your Nextdoor and say, hey, I've got a client that is looking for this, 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 and this. Does anyone know, does anyone have anyone that is selling and that has these attributes? I mean, I think that's a way to like get involved with like your local community. And then also look for, most neighborhoods have a Facebook page. So, and if they don't, create one. And try to get people involved. I don't know how many of you guys attended Family Reunion. Did most of you do it? Okay, I thought it was
I
one of
think
the
they
best.
all did.
Okay, good.
All of the people in the room.
Okay, good. I thought it was one of the best family reunions we've ever had. Obviously, I missed the connection of like being around people, but the content was really good. And there was a breakout with a solo agent, and they were getting so many referrals just from creating a Facebook group for their neighborhood. And it doesn't even have to be, I mean, you could go look for other neighborhoods too. I mean, you're the creator of that, and you're the one that is bringing people in, but I think that that's another way to grow your database. Just getting as local as you can, and especially like, we all know where we live, right? Like I know what new things are happening in my neighborhood, what events are happening. And it doesn't even have to be that. I mean, you could even, like Cody Derrick's a pretty good example. He has an email newsletter that he sends out from City Home Collective every single month. And it really does, I mean, you can go just look up City Home Collective and kind of see what he promotes. But he's not only talking about his business, but he's also talking about local happenings. And that's providing value. I mean, I've even found things on his, when he sends out the newsletter, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know that restaurant opened, you know? So I think just showing that you know your community and you know the market. I think that's a huge ways to grow your database. So as far as any other things that I'm doing really with my database, that's kind of a nutshell. I mean,
That's a good nutshell.
It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
And luckily I've been able to leverage it, and you will too eventually. Cause I mean, it can become a lot of work at first, but at some point you'll be able to leverage it, and then it just becomes automated and you don't even have to think about it. I mean, obviously, like I get together with Cody at the beginning of every year and we talk about what we're thinking, what we might wanna change, what we did well the year before. And it's not like he plans out all 24 postcards, because if we did that a year ago, like look at the market, we'd be like telling a whole different story. So I think that just staying in touch, being very localized, and continuing to grow that database through like either open houses or really nurturing those leads, you're gonna have a really great business in the end. So, yay.
Hey, awesome.
Yay.
I know we have fewer people in here, the applause doesn't sound as good, but in
Oh.
Zoom land,
No, it's
if you guys want to applause as well, wherever you are, that would be awesome. But
so cute.
I just want to say thanks again for Ashley for taking the time to do this. I want to share with you guys a couple things I wrote down. I would recommend, and I know many of you have heard this many times from me, but don't go to these and then leave and say, that was such a good thing that Ashley did. And I learned a lot, same as family reunions, right?
Oh yeah.
And then after a week, you're like, yeah, I remember it was great. I remember how great Ashley is, but I don't remember exactly what we talked about. And then after another week, you're trying to remember who was speaking. Write down 1 to 2 things that you will implement, okay? Make them action items. So I want to share with you guys, if it's okay, just really quickly. Do you have to go? by the
No,
way, or
you're
okay?
fine.
Okay. So one thing I loved is she talked about, especially around COVID, when we're not getting out as often any longer, she talked about going online, join groups, but even more than that, what I wrote down is start a group. If there's a neighborhood, I love becoming a mayor, unofficial mayor of your neighborhood. Start a neighborhood Facebook page if you need to. Share what's going on. Same thing goes with Nextdoor. Go on there quite often. Be a presence where people are going to remember. You also said something that it's funny that we hear the same thing, but when you hear it differently, it can hit differently. Hopefully we start doing this and implementing, but identify your people. Identify with your people. I started the same way. It was just name. Actually, for me, I think it was maybe just first name, phone number. You remember how
Yeah.
simple it is in the
Oh,
very
yeah.
beginning?
Yeah.
And then you call, and if you don't identify your groups, this is what the call sounds like, and this is how nervous you are. Hey, Brad, how's it going? Good. How's life? Okay, and on the other end, Brad's like, what is going on? But identify with your group, so take notes. She talked about knowing someone got a dog or something,
Yeah.
right? And how important do people feel when you contact them again quarterly and say like, hey, how's dog ownership treating you? Things like that, right? And that'll give you a reason to call.
Yeah.
And then, we've talked about different CRMs, different tools, and everything else out there. And what's interesting to me is we look at tools sometimes to save us, but have a process. Like Ashley, she reaches out consistently. I hope you hear that. Like she has a process. Our processes can always be better, but she sticks to it, which is pretty awesome. And you're a leverage master. Like having a 16-year-old going around.
Oh.
Hey, you love to drive?
Well, they
Like,
do.
yeah, why not? Yeah, I love that. Are you gonna say something? Okay.
Well, the other thing that I just thought of too is make sure that you know your value proposition. And I'm sure that's probably an Ignite class or part of Ignite, I would assume. And also, make sure that you know your brand. So everyone knows about me that I love animals. I'm a huge environmentalist. And one day I want to open my own animal sanctuary. And so like, Cody's not going to send out a marketing piece that's about a steakhouse for me. Oh, and everyone knows that I'm vegan. Or like go to the zoo. Like he knows like that's not my brand. Like, and I honestly, he did a post and I can't even remember what it was. This was years ago. And I literally had like 20 people text me and they're like, are you okay? Because it was on my Facebook, so it looked like I did.
Yeah.
But it was so off from like who I am. So anyway.
I love that. So it's your value proposition is not only what we're doing on the real estate side is what you're saying.
Right.
Have we shared our story that they can relate to?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that soon too, but what is your story? Let people know what your story is and what makes it a good story, right? The way you share it. And then lastly, I just wrote this down before you finished, but have a support group, right? You talked about masterminds before when we got together, but have a group that you get together with and talk about the business. What are you doing that works right now, especially around COVID? Some of these questions are excellent, and I know you can get answers from one another as well. So
Masterminds are huge. I've been involved in at least one mastermind for the last 12 years, I would say. And especially during COVID, I can't even tell you like how much I get from talking to others and like what they're doing and how they're pivoting. Because if you're not pivoting right now, you're losing, you know? So really having that knowledge base within the mastermind is big.
Is that realtors outside this market area that you talk to over the phone?
So the two that I'm involved in right now, one is all different states, which is great for me because then you get to hear what's happening in other states. And then the other one is here, and with agents, not here like in this market center, but with agents within Salt Lake that I've known for years, and we get together once a month.
awesome. All right, well that's all I have. Thank you again,
Yeah,
Ashley,
thanks guys.
for doing this for us.
And I'm seriously here. I mean, if I'm not physically here, you can always like text me, call me, email me. Like when I got into the business, I had to learn from someone, and if I hadn't had the support of several different agents when I first got into the business, I wouldn't be where I am today. So
Don't suffer in silence,
Yeah.
for sure. All right.
awesome,
again.
thanks guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.